And next up, we will be transitioning into meat space. So we have with us Professor Jason Potts from RMIT, and he's presenting some work with Chris Berg, Sinclair Davidson, Speculative Visions of a Financial Future, with the title Beyond Money, Cryptocurrencies, Machine-Mediated Transactions, and High-Frequency Hyperbarter. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Azim. Thanks for this. So, change of pace. I'm going to sort of go in a very, very different direction to what the first two talks have done and present basically something that is far more sort of closer to sci-fi than actual sort of monetary engineering right now. But the context of this talk is we're in the business in crypto economic systems of designing money, right? That's the engineering objective in front of us. What I want to do is to present basically an evolutionary theory of money as understood by economists looking backwards for the past few thousand years to try and get a sense of where we're going next. And I've got a sort of one big simple idea that one of these things that's either sort of too simple to say out loud, or I'll just say it out loud and we'll see whether it's interesting or not. But the sort of punchline to my talk is where we're going next, we don't need money, right? This is the end of money. And the sort of process of building crypto economic systems is the beginning of the end of money. And I want to explain why that is a theoretical argument and what follows from that. So just first thing is money is one of these things that, everyone thinks they understand, but it's actually an incredibly super weird concept. First of all, only humans have money. This is a thing that lots of other social coordinating organisms on Earth do all sorts of communications and interactions without money. Only humans have evolved money. But humans haven't evolved money once. We've evolved it thousands of times. It just keeps coming back over and over again. So money is a sort of hard thing that is part of what we do. The other thing is it's not real. There's no such thing as money. Money is a sort of Platonic concept. There's a set of qualities of moneyness, and what we call money is whatever is most approximating that ideal quality of moneyness at the time. It's always been like that. It will always be thus, which is part of why money's sort of hard to get a hold on. It's a technology. It's a social technology. It's an intersubjective technology. It's a Schelling point. It's whatever we collectively decide is money, functions as money, and that's not a sort of, it's not a philosophical point. That's a technical economic point in the history of money. It's very, very old. We don't really know where it began. It's as old as numbers. So money's not a recent thing, and I'm sort of making this point so that we can just very, very clearly separate out the idea that money is a gift from government. Money is an evolutionary quality that has looked very, very different at different points in time. And again, that's not just speculation. That's, monetary economists have known this for a very long time. All right, so it's a technology of exchange. Money has evolved from barter. And the reason it evolved from barter, the reason we don't still do barter, is that barter is very inefficient from a transactions cost perspective. It is an inferior technology. What we count as money is essentially a particular type of commodity, a thing in the economy that has a certain set of qualities. There's a bunch of stuff in the economy, and there's another commodity in there somewhere that gets called money, and whichever is money is the thing that has the best money qualities. Right, what are they? I want to point this out because where I'm going with this is that the whole sort of crypto community, correctly, is very much into what is crypto? It's the next phase in the evolution of money point. And the argument I'm going to make is that this diagram is wrong. It's not complete. There's a phase that comes after this, and that's the point I want to talk to, and it's surprising. All right, so evolution of money, the last sort of 10,000 years in a nutshell. Barter, whenever you have specialization and exchange, you get interaction and you get trade. Whenever you get trade ratios in terms of those barter exchange ratios. Money evolved with the idea that some of those goods that were being bartered around had special qualities of portability or scarcity or other sorts of qualities that gave us hand money. Hand money is like a bearer asset. It just means if you're holding it, it's money, and whoever holds it has the money. Modern banking money is the sort of intermediation of that process through all sorts of ways of creating fiat money. And this is the origin of state money. The interaction of governments intersecting in the money space is relatively late in the evolution of money. And then crypto money is where we are now. Backstory, money is what money does. What money does is provide a medium of exchange. Anything can be a medium of exchange. It provides a unit of account, and this is the one that's often overlooked in terms of that's the measure, the base measure in terms of when you're calculating what something is from an exchange perspective, and a store of value in the sense of a way of pushing value through time. So that's doing three very separate things, and whatever does those things has the quality of money. Economic theory actually has a more complex answer to the what is money question. And modern economic theory emphasizes the role of money as an information good in the sense that it's economizing on search costs, right? So this is the idea that what money does is it lowers the computational cost of searching through a space of commodities. Another modern economic theory approach is to think of money as memory. Money is basically, and again, going back to the Platonic notion of imagine an economy where every single transaction could be traced through time. What money is effectively is a way of economizing on the memory of having to keep track of that. Now, the second one is emphasizing the property rights aspect. The first one is emphasizing human search functions. Macroeconomists have a completely different view again. For them, money is whatever is in the space of all commodities, whichever is the most liquid is money. And so what that perspective means is that anything can be money if you provide enough market depth to it. And so this notion of M1, M2, M3, or other money-like financial assets is high-powered money is the most liquid of those assets, which usually is one that is under sort of government control to issue, to create liquidity in it. Again, that's what central banking is the creation of liquidity in a pool of assets. Classical economists didn't believe any of that, and modern Austrian economics also emphasizes money evolves from credit, i.e. from trust relationships. So money evolves out of contracting relationships, not out of financial relationships or asset relationships or memory or information. And modern political economy is this notion that money is a control mechanism in economic interactions, which is the idea of fiat currency. Now, I'm just throwing that up there just to emphasize that that's mainstream modern economics right now has at least sort of 5 different dimensions, fundamentally different ways of understanding this answer to the question, what is money? As well as this notion of this Platonic money is what money does sort of notion. So money is weird. Money is a complex thing. I want to focus on 2 things. Money, the way we normally think of it, we're thinking of it as a financial asset. Money gives money prices. I want to emphasize this unit of measurement notion. In a monetary economy as opposed to a barter economy, there are money prices. You measure things in terms of that. And the second part that's just widely overlooked because it just seems almost too obvious to say out loud is in this past 10,000 years of the evolution of money, that evolutionary selection pressure, the selection mechanism operating over what is money has been humans. Right? Money is whatever the humans use as money. All right? That's interesting because that's the point that we might be about to just shift past. So here's my argument. The money era takes us all the way through to up into and including the crypto era. We're still using money as a unit of account, a store of value. If you think of Bitcoin, has all of those properties. But what comes next, if you put all of those previous notions of money is what money does, and we think of money as the most liquid of all assets, we think of money as a perfect ledger, we think of money as perfect memory, the obvious conclusion is we're going back to barter. But it's not barter as in I give you this chicken for that cow or whatever. It's not one-to-one commodity for commodity barter. This is high-dimensional. Everything that is an asset is potentially barterable with everything else that is an asset that is simultaneously barterable. Right? Let's call that high-dimensional hyperbarter. Right? We don't have that in the world right now because humans can't do that. That's not a thing that a human could do, and nor would a human ever want to do that. That would be a terrible money. Right? It's not a good. It doesn't have any of the qualities of money except store of value potentially. But high-dimensional hyperbarter is the obvious next step in a crypto economy. Once you've tokenized all the things, what just happened is you don't tokenize all the things and then there's a money. It's everything is now money, right? The only thing that's slowing that down is liquidity in this process. So again, just to think this through, because that's my point, right? That's where we're going, and I want to just draw out some implications of that. In a barter exchange, you've got a commodity price. The price of a chicken is however many cows you got for that. A monetary economy is exactly the same thing, just with a money price in that thing. Right? Money price is a thing that humans can work with. What a hyperbarter economy looks like is it can no longer be human intermediated. It has to be machine intermediated. What that looks like is the missing part of the crypto economy right now is that we're still doing it human to human. That's medieval from an industrial perspective in the sense that there's lots of other things we don't let humans do directly. When we're flying around, we use machines for that. We use machines. We intermediate a lot of stuff with machines. But interestingly, the things that we don't intermediate with machines is choice and contracting and economic agency. Economic agency is still human to human. That's a money era phenomena, right? And we'll stay in the money era so long as it's humans interacting directly with humans. But in a world where you have in effect, an agent, right? You're the principal. You train your agent. Your agent could be an app. It could be whatever it is. It's an agent in the sense that it's working off your preferences. You've trained it. You've rewarded it in punishment based on its behavior. But it's basically your automation that's working in the world. That's the thing that doesn't need money. It can work directly with a high-dimensional matrix of assets that it has contracting ability over. It doesn't need money prices. It's still making contracts, it's still making trades, it's still doing all of the things of exchange, but it's not doing it in a money price world. It's doing it purely off sets of preferences, contract curves, just the primitives of economic exchange. The only difference between this and our world of sort of 2, 5, 10,000 years ago is it's high dimensional. Right? That's the one thing that's shifted in that world. Now, if that's the case, if that's where we're going, and I think this is definitely where we're going, as more and more things become assets and become tokenized, they become money-like and fungible, and the only sort of barriers to this are just the creation of liquidity. And again, this is the building these crypto economic systems and markets is precisely what is adding that liquidity into this system. The sort of missing bit of hardware in this space is these economic trading agents. And so I think we need to start thinking about what they will look like, what properties they will have, what types of privacy protections they will need, what legal status they have, because they are economic agents in the sense that they're contracting on your behalf. They'll need learning. They'll need to interact with regulatory systems, and so on. So that's the sort of just the first implication of that. The second thing I want to point out is the big problem with all of this, with this entire sort of vision of where we're going next, is that what this reveals is a fundamental conflict that we're right in the middle of right now. I think this is the thing that is surfacing. We saw it a bit with sort of the governments versus Libra and so on, is what this transition from a monetary era to a post-monetary era, a hyper-barter era, is a fundamental conflict about visions of what money is. And I said the beginning here, money is weird. It's complex. It's a very complex object. But the way in which it breaks right now is a vision of money as medium of exchange for people to trade versus money as a mechanism of economic control. Governments and states in the modern era use money fundamentally as an economic tool. That's the thing that is starting to unravel and break up now. And I'll just sort of point to a few things that you're sort of seeing. There's evidence of this right now. Quantitative easing was the first big one in terms of the money breaking in terms of store of value with inflation. Negative interest rates is the next thing we're going to see, and what that looks like is the end of monetary policy or the attempt to recapture monetary policy by banning cash. Cash is memoryless money and also non-observable money. To have a negative interest rate world, you need to ban cash and have a digital central bank currency so that you can have so that you can basically run negative interest rate policies. There's a bunch of sort of monetary phenomena that are going on in the background that I don't think have been properly fully connected to what is actually happening right now, in terms of the way in which nation states enact economic control through monetary policy. So the argument is, I think we're right. This is the period we're in now. This notion of crypto and Bitcoin and so on as the sort of final evolution of money to eventually arrive at digital money, and that's the end state, I think is wrong. I think that's the beginning of the end. That's the end of the monetary era, but the beginning of the hyper-barter or post-money or tokenized era. And what that is setting up a fight with is monetary policy. And so that's what we're building. Right, we're building very much on one side of that, and I think it's the point of the reason I want to sort of present this idea was I think it's important to be very clear that that's that's the nature of the fight right now. At the moment, it hasn't sort of broken out fully. It's still a bit hedgy around which way it will go, but I think this is going to escalate. And I think this is going to escalate very much in terms of a monetary policy choice between whether governments come down hard on this and attempt to fight back against this evolving private money, because it's not going to be money anymore. It's going to be the sort of the digital assets essentially taking on the qualities of money, and in the process of that evolving, as we can see. But at the same time, that's the final phase of the loss of economic control over economies. Now, So look, that's the sort of point of the paper, is to try and sketch that out, to sort of connect how this sits between the way monetary economists are viewing cryptocurrencies and the way in which cryptocurrencies interact with sort of nation states. And to see that what is being built here is not just money, it's not just an evolution of money, but I think is also an evolution of contracting agency. I'll finish there. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. We have time for a few questions if you make your way to the microphone. So Dan will be first.
Hi. So you talk about barter and hyperbarter. I wonder if you've kind of seen this work by David Graeber. He wrote this book, Debt, right, which kind of, I think, indicates that the idea that we started with barter is actually a myth, and that actually kind of original human society is kind of based on debt. And kind of a second point is that whether maybe you think this new version of kind of like many liquid tokens is maybe more similar to kind of the earlier days of currency, where we had kind of many banks in the U.S., for example, issue their own private dollars or something like this, rather than now where we basically just have the U.S. dollar.
Yeah. On the David Graeber stuff, I mean, he's right in the sense that like that's a production view of this idea that money evolves out of contracts. Yes. The barter view is that money evolves out of exchange. So whether you've got a trade view of the economy or a production view of the economy, both arguments I think are still, I don't think that's inconsistent with this view. And again, the history of, state money is modern and historically weird, right? Most monies in history have been private monies, and I think this notion of it being a lot of the early banking things was state permissioned private monies. What Bitcoin does is break the permissioned part of that link, that anything can start up a private money so long as you can persuade others to use it. So again, that's. But there's a difference between that notion of creating a money and tokenization of assets, where you're taking a bunch of assets and turning them into liquid tradable property rights. And I think that's the sort of that's the evolution. That's the evolution of money processes is going on there just as much as creating exchange tokens. Yeah.
Okay, next question over here.
Hi. I want to agree with you that AI is surely going to play an ever-increasing role in automating economic transactions, understanding preferences, representing us. Completely agree with that. I also want to agree with you that what we mean by money is clearly changing and will have huge impact on what governments do from a policy perspective. But I think where I disagree is I don't feel like you've really made the case yet, at least I wasn't convinced, that economies of AIs will not still benefit from money in the same way that economies of humans do. And the things we get from prices, the ability to aggregate information, to represent kind of the aggregate value that others have, the welfare theorems, the ability to transact without needing to barter. AIs are not magic, right? AIs need to deal with information asymmetry. AIs need to solve search problems. AIs need to do all the things that humans need to do. So that's where I depart from you. It's not clear to me at all that AI economies won't need prices in the same way that human economies will. And you're talking about tokenization of assets, so maybe you're allowing for prices still, but the idea of having a numeraire price, which we can all kind of find is valuable, that to me seems like it will remain extremely useful.
Yeah, I think I also agree with that point, but there's a distinction between price as a sort of bounded rationality, sort of an ability to simplify calculation, versus price in the sort of Hayek 1945 sense of an emergent bit of information that is aggregating, or a way to aggregate information from a series of sort of decentralized interactions to facilitate coordination. Right. So, but that's one thing doing two separate functions. I was just strongly arguing on the first one. It's not. I mean, I think this is where we're up to now. Is that the question is whether we can develop new types of mechanisms that can work on just directly off exchange data rather than price data, or trading data rather than price data per se. So. I'm not sure where that goes yet.
Okay, thank you. We'll have to be quite quick, so please make the questions very succinct. Thank you, over here.
Sure. Brendan Barr, Media Lab alum. We tend to think about things in terms of bits and atoms. I'm also involved in computational law. The question is, it's a very fine line. Assets that are, how do I say, legally tradable and not legally tradable going forward. It's going to be very, very interesting in terms of what we're allowed and told we can count as an asset or not. Can you expound further on that?
Yeah, so that is the right question. So in this hyperbarter world, everything is money to the extent that it is liquid, or the extent that it has properties of liquidity. So that then becomes the sort of hard problem to solve. So one of the interesting things is a lot of the work that Glenn Veal's been doing around sort of this notion of quadratic property, in the sense of property being just things that are continuously up for auction or continuously up for bidding. So I think what we're more likely to end up with is, one way to create liquidity is to essentially have all assets permanently in markets or permanently biddable. Again, that's not the world we live in now. There's very few assets have that quality. But that's usually because building markets has traditionally been quite an expensive thing to do, or liquidity has been a difficult concept to create. So again, I think, also in relation to the previous question, these are the sort of new challenges that open up in this world. Is that the significance of what a trading agent looks like, the mechanism of how you create liquidity, which have always been important parts of economies, but they become absolutely central to a hyperbarter world.
Okay, unfortunately we're out of time for questions, so let's save them for the break. Thank you very much, Jason.